For 17 years, Marcus had lived alone in the mountains, hiding from a world that had taken everything from him. The accident that killed his family had also killed the man he used to be, leaving behind only a hollow shell that preferred the company of pine trees and silence. His cabin sat at 9,000 feet, where the air was thin and visitors were non-existent. He told himself this was peace, but in the darkest hours of night, he knew it was merely existence. One autumn morning, while checking his traps near the ridge, Marcus heard something that made his blood freeze. A scream, high-pitched and desperate, echoed through the valley. Every instinct told him to turn back, to return to his sanctuary of solitude. But something deeper, something he thought had died years ago, pulled him forward. And if you're wondering what he found next, trust me, it will change everything you think you know about survival and humanity. He found her in a rocky clearing, surrounded by 3 wolves, but these weren't attacking her. They were protecting her. The girl, no more than 16 or 17, crouched on all fours, her matted dark hair falling past her shoulders, her clothes little more than tattered rags. She snarled at him, her teeth bared, her eyes wild and feral. The largest Wolf, a silver-gray male, positioned himself between Marcus and the girl, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Marcus slowly raised his hands and backed away, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and disbelief. In 43 years of life, he had seen many strange things in these mountains, but never this. He returned to his cabin, but the image of the girl haunted him. That night he couldn't sleep. He thought about his own daughter, Emily, who would have been about the same age. He thought about how the world had failed him, and how he had failed the world by hiding. The next morning, he packed a bag with food, blankets, and a first aid kit and returned to the clearing. The wolves were gone, but fresh tracks led higher into the mountains. Marcus followed them for 3 days, leaving offerings of dried meat and bread at intervals, never getting too close, always respecting the distance the pack maintained. On the 4th day, the girl approached his camp alone. She moved like water over stones, silent and fluid, her eyes studying him with an intelligence that was both human and utterly alien. Marcus placed food on a flat rock between them and stepped back. She grabbed it and retreated, eating quickly, her eyes never leaving his face. This became their ritual. Every day he would come. Every day she would take what he offered. And slowly, impossibly, trust began to form in the space between them. He started talking to her, his voice rusty from years of disuse, telling her about the valley below, about the cabin he'd built with his own hands, about simple things like coffee and warm beds. She never responded, but her eyes grew less wild, more curious. Winter came early that year, brutal and unforgiving. Marcus knew the girl and her Wolf pack couldn't survive the harshest months in the high peaks. One morning, he found her collapsed near his cabin, her lips blue with cold, her breathing shallow. The wolves circled at a distance, whimpering but not approaching. Marcus made a choice that terrified him. He carried her inside, wrapped her in blankets, started a fire, and waited to see if she would wake or if the wolves would tear through his door. She woke screaming, thrashing like a wild thing. But he spoke to her softly, the way he used to speak to Emily during thunderstorms, and gradually she calmed. The wolves never attacked. They simply waited outside, their yellow eyes watching through the windows. The next 6 months changed everything. The girl, whom Marcus named Arya after his grandmother, slowly remembered how to be human. She had been lost in these mountains at age 6, separated from her parents during a hiking trip that ended in tragedy. The wolves had found her, raised her, kept her alive when everything human in her had screamed to give up. Now, with Marcus's patient guidance, she learned to speak again, first in broken syllables, then in full sentences that carried the weight of her impossible story. She learned to use utensils, to wear proper clothes, to trust in shelter and warmth, but she never forgot her pack. Every evening she would go to the edge of the porch and call to them, and they would answer from the forest. Marcus discovered that saving Arya was also saving himself. Teaching her to live again taught him the same lesson. The walls he'd built around his heart, brick by brick over 17 years, began to crumble. He laughed for the first time in nearly 2 decades when Arya tried coffee and spat it out, declaring it tasted like burnt dirt. He cried when she called him family, the first time anyone had used that word in his presence since the accident. Together, they created something neither thought possible, a second chance. When spring arrived, officials came. Someone had spotted smoke from Marcus's cabin and investigated. They wanted to take Arya to study her, to put her in systems and programs. But Marcus fought for her with a ferocity that surprised even himself. He hired lawyers with money he'd saved for nothing, fought custody battles, proved he could provide a stable home. And Arya, who had found her voice, spoke for herself. She told them about kindness, about the man who saved her by letting her save him. Today, they still live in that mountain cabin, though social workers visit regularly. Arya attends school online, studies wildlife biology, and dreams of protecting the wilderness that raised her. The Wolf Pack still comes by, and she still calls to them. Marcus learned that hiding from the world doesn't heal you, but opening your heart to someone who needs you just might. Sometimes the family we choose, whether human or Wolf, is the one that teaches us what it truly means to survive. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to remember that it's never too late to come back to life, that second chances exist in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply opening your door to let love back in.